covered in mud. All of them were covered in mud. And I was like, who actually approved for this pitch to be played on? Like, who authorises that? I know when I used to be a referee, it was down to me. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. This week, I feel like the focus has pretty much just been on the women's side because obviously they've played in the Champions League at the start of the week, and then at the end of the week ended it with a nice WSL win. Whereas the men, they're obviously doing their various things on their international break. And to be fair, I've kept up with the English players because obviously I've been watching Tuchel to see how he's managing them, and it's been good to see the youngsters like Lewis-Skelly. He's obviously scored on his debut, which I think he's the youngest player. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's the youngest player to ever do that on his debut. So that's so good to see them succeeding out there. Ethan Waneri, obviously another youngster in the under-21s, he scored as well within like 10 minutes or something. So it's great to see that what they're doing at Arsenal is translating into their international play as well. So that's really good to see. But the focus of this podcast is obviously Arsenal. So we're going to focus on basically the women's side, the two games that have happened this week, and also the men don't actually come back until next Tuesday. So I'm hoping I can get a pod in before then. So actually, this is pretty much just going to be all about the women. I've mentioned obviously the men a little bit there, but it comes in swings and roundabouts. Like a couple episodes ago, this is what, episode 21, so like maybe episode 18, 19, it was basically all about the men's side because women were on their international break. So, it's just how it works. But anyways, we're all Arsenal human fans here. So football is football. Let's get straight into it. To recap, a mixed week. We had one win, but we had one quite big loss, which could be quite detrimental to our season. So let's get into that now. Okay, so as I mentioned, it has been all about the women's team this week, which, no complaints. So I thought I'd base the question around just the women's side. I mean, if you do look back the last few episodes, they have mostly been around Arteta's side as a whole, silverware for them. So it's quite nice that actually we're able to take time to reflect on the women's side. But the question actually isn't really to do with their performances. I mean, I could focus on what's going on the pitch, but in the WSL, we're not going to win it. We already know that. It's just about getting in that top 3 spot, to be fair. And then focus on Champions League. I feel like it's a bit out of our hands right now. And obviously I can get into that in the predictions. But I thought this is the time where the last couple of weeks, Arsenal have introduced their first ever women's clothing line, which is just focused purely on Arsenal women. And I wanted to see your thoughts on it. So I basically put the question out, are you obsessed with the new Arsenal Women's Football Club line? 67% of you said yes, I'm obsessed. 33% of you said no. And to be fair, I feel like how I worded that question was a little bit leading because you might like it but not be obsessed. But I feel like obsessed is just a word that I'm obsessed with right now. Like I'm just saying, I'm like, oh my God, I'm obsessed. Even if I'm just like, oh, I like that. I feel like it's a word that's going around. You know how these words, they do that vibe. Firstly, yeah, I agree with you guys. I agree with the majority anyways, that it is a nice line. I'm not like obsessed. Actually, maybe, you know what, my wording was pretty poor because I'm not like obsessed, like, oh my God, I need all of it. But if I could have it, oh my gosh, I actually went to the Liverpool game, which obviously I'll get into in a bit, but I went to the Liverpool game and saw so many people wearing different pieces from it. Like you had I really like the jacket that it comes up both sides so it can sort of be like a little bit of a crop top. I think the red's really nice. Like it looks comfy, like a comfy range, not just sport mode. Whereas like obviously all these shirts, they're all like sport energy, whereas that kind of look like leisure, like you could casually wear that. I just like seeing it. I know the scarf, it looks really cool because if you look at these scarves, they're just Arsenal. I quite like this one. This is the latest one I've got. But my first ever one, I don't know where it is, somewhere. My first ever scarf has Arsenal ladies written on it. So I don't really wear that now because obviously, I mean, I did my dissertation kind of based on this, but the language you use towards women in sport can really dictate how you view them and different perceptions. So replacing ladies with women is a much more powerful statement. And I don't really think many clubs use ladies anymore, if any. I can't really think of any, especially not in the higher divisions in English football that use that. So it's a scarf that I don't really wear. It's a scarf I've obviously kept because that was my first scarf, and like, yeah, I love it. And it kind of takes me back to the roots of how I got into Arsenal and Arsenal back in the day. But right now I'm thinking, oh, I quite like it. I probably won't because I've already got scarves and I don't need any more. Sort of the same with the clothing line as a whole. Just focusing more on the environment. If we're going to put our little environment conscious hat on right now, I don't know why we need to keep introducing and releasing all these different kits. I mean, it's bad enough each season we have a home kit, an away kit, and then a third kit. Now suddenly we've got a kit for so many different days of the year, and I love them because I love celebrating the different cultures that represent Arsenal, that run through Arsenal. Obviously, this is so cool because Arsenal are leading the way. Like, we've led the way on the pitch for many years, not so much recently, but I do like how off the pitch now we're saying that there's a safe space for women. But I just think when you think about the environment, the amount of water that goes into just creating one kit or one piece of clothing, if it was done sustainably, of course, but like, they know that they want people to buy it, and you can only create sustainable clothing really if it's going to be more expensive, which obviously wouldn't be as accessible for the fans. But I mean, to be fair, I brought that one hoodie, which you'll see on the, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you'll see it, or actually on Spotify, it's like my logo. I brought that one hoodie this season, and since then they've brought out so many different ones that I'm like, oh my god, if I had the money and if I wanted to, I could literally have bought so many different pieces this season. So that kind of does frustrate me because I think, right, you're only really, like, we should almost just not buy anything until the end of the season, just so then we can pick out what we actually want. Either way, I do love the idea that it's a more inclusive space. I feel like maybe, is it separated? This is just a question actually. Do you feel like it's maybe separating the men's and women's side because we've had to create our own unique range for just the women's? But I have seen that there's a lot of unisex pieces in it, not like loads, but there are a few. So I guess whatever your identity, you're able to wear this clothing range, and I do love it. I've seen a few people on TikTok, a few men in particular, who have been wearing the clothing range, and I think that is, if you like, that is just saying you're an ally, and I love it. An ally for the women's game. Also, the final thing I want to say on this is the caption for the introduction that they put on their Instagram, that Arsenal put on their Instagram, said dedicated, driven, inclusive, and honestly, I think that's just spot on. So on that note, let's get into this week and what has actually been happening in the world of Arsenal women's, because yeah, they've been taking over Arsenal this last week. Real Madrid 2, Arsenal 0. Not what we wanted. It is not what we wanted, and it's also not what I thought would happen. I knew it would be a tough game, don't get me wrong. I wasn't going into it completely complacent. I feel like that's a nice word that I like to use a lot on here. And I did predict it was going to be 2-1 to us, but we couldn't find the net, and it is so frustrating. But you know what? We're gonna get into that game now. So firstly, I've written down, because I think I wrote this whilst I was actually watching the game, Emily Fox, I don't know if anyone knows this is so niche. Emily Fox was doing her hair at one point during the game, and I was like, I just love it. I just find it so funny, because she was literally, this was probably like 5 minutes in, and she had the ball at her feet, and then she was just like putting her hair in a bun or something, and I was like, whoa, like this is multitasking into the next level, here for it. And luckily nothing came off the back of it, like no goal or anything like that, so it's fine. I want to just mention the centre-back duo before we get into the goals that they scored, which is really fun, which we're going to skim over that real quick. But I just want to get into our centre-back duo of Catley and Williamson. I feel like it was just weird. Like, it looked weird. I was like, wait, what's going on? Because obviously you're used to seeing Williamson there, but then maybe Wiebe Moy, or if she's injured, you're used to seeing maybe Laia Codina. Like, there's so many different options. But it just looked weird. I was like, oh, because obviously Catley's usually more on the wings, if that makes sense. And it kind of, I feel like that kind of did cause our downfall for the first goal. And then, I mean, I do feel like the first goal that Linda Caicedo scored for Real Madrid, I mean, this player is a baller, by the way. Like, I first got to know about her vibe at the World Cup watching her, and I was like, yeah, talented. But I do feel like her first goal sort of maybe came because it was a bit unfamiliar. Like, you could tell that they weren't a strong centre-back duo. And I don't say anyone's necessarily at fault, but I feel like it kind of slipped through. So, you know, not the best. So that made it 1-0 in the 22nd minute. And their second goal came in like the 80th minute. What is it? 80? I've got it down here. Yeah, 82nd minute. So that was like nice, like cushion for them. Start of the game, end of the game. They knew they had done it. One thing, right, I'm going to put my phone down for this. One thing that has got so much attention on the media, and rightfully so, is the pitch conditions. I have no idea who approved that pitch. Honestly, like, Slegers came out after and mentioned it. Their coach came out and mentioned, like, everyone was talking about this pitch, because if you look at those players, like, don't get me wrong, there are some funny little videos on TikTok. You can see, like, Emily Fox literally just sliding, like, she literally turned, like, I don't understand, she was going in for a tackle and then she ended up just turning and facing the other way, covered in mud. All of them were covered in mud, and I was like, who actually approved for this pitch to be played on? Like, who authorizes that? I know when I used to be a referee, it was down to me to decide if I wanted this pitch to be approved, but obviously I was doing it for, like, kids and or Sunday League men, so it wasn't like too major, and at the most you'd have 2 assistant referees and you can sort of decide together. Whereas obviously all eyes are on this because it's a big Champions League game, but I felt like the quality of the pitch looked like it was worse than like a Sunday League game. Like, it genuinely was so poor, that I'm happy it's caused uproar in the media, because people need to talk about this. I don't know what can happen and how they can make a change with it. I mean, we did see it as well at the League Cup final, Subway League Cup final at Derby Football Club, and that pitch was so dry. Like, I mean, it was literally the opposite. You had such a dry pitch then, and then literally this pitch was just like mud, like thick mud. I mean, it was great for slide tackles, but you ended up sliding like off the whole pitch. Like, honestly, a joke. Sorry, I feel like I got a little bit heated then. But I just don't understand why we have this standard in the women's game, and we actually kind of expect it to be like this. Like, we don't expect the highest treatment, and I feel like people within, I don't know how it's going to change, but things like this need to start changing because they deserve a lot more than that. Focusing back on the football itself though, there was a potential penalty for us at one point. Chloe Kelly did go down in the box, but I feel like no one made a fuss about it, so it sort of was like quickly just forgotten about. Also, I wrote it here in my notes, Caroline Weir is next level, and honestly crazy. I feel like, because she used to play obviously in the WSL, and I almost forgot how good she is. Like, I've seen clips, like there was that viral clip a couple of years back where the way she controlled the ball in the midfield was like off the side of her foot, went over her head, and then just like slotted a through ball into her teammate. Like, she is top class, but I think when you see it in a quarterfinals, a Champions League game, you're like, oh yeah, she means business. She is good. Obviously this is not the game. This is not the outcome we wanted, because we are 2-0 down. We're lucky that it's only the first leg, but I mean, coming back from a 2-0 win is pretty tough. I mean, the question now is, can we actually get through to the semi-finals of the Champions League? I think if we can get through to the semi-finals, we can get through to the finals, because that will give us that momentum. But going 2-0 down is so tough, especially when this isn't an easy side that got fluky goals. Like, they are a very good side. They are new to the Champions League campaign, I guess. Like, this isn't something, obviously you think of Real Madrid and you think their men's side have historically thrived and excelled in this competition, whereas for their women's side it's something that's still quite new to them. But you couldn't tell, they were literally unreal. And it's so frustrating, because I feel like we did have a few chances but we just weren't taking them, and honestly all eyes were pretty much on the pitch. So I'm hoping that we do face them tomorrow night on Wednesday night. So I'm hoping that we can actually do something with it. We can turn it around. I mean, I'm going to talk about it in a bit, obviously, in the predictions, so give it like 5 minutes if you want to just fast forward to that. But I hope we can turn it around. Also, at the same time, I was watching, obviously it's like the day after, I was watching Chelsea City game, and somehow Bompasta got her first loss of the season, which is crazy. Obviously, they're still unbeaten in the WSL and in other competitions, but focusing on the Champions League and as a whole now, she's not unbeaten if you look across all competitions, which I feel like for them probably kind of takes the pressure off, because it was inevitable. It was bound to happen at some point. But like City, honestly, they're good. They're good, man. And it's quite interesting because obviously they're playing 4 games. Obviously this is going slightly away from Arsenal, but they're playing 4 games in the space of 12-13 days, I think it is. So right now Chelsea are winning 2-1 overall. But I'm hoping I'm hoping Thursday night City can keep that lead, but it's so tricky because 2 goals, you can see it as, well, if you get a goal early on in the game, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to win, or at least equalise, take it to extra time, penalties, you name it. But I'm hoping Arsenal can do that and Chelsea just don't show up as much. But I'll actually be at both of those games this week, Wednesday and Thursday, so I'm excited to see it because I just love going to Champions League games. I think they're fun. They are quite late in the evening and I do have early shifts, but It should be a good vibe. But anyways, I don't think the Champions League is over just yet. I think obviously this time tomorrow we're going to pretty much know what the vibe is saying, but I don't think it is. I think we'll bring them to the Emirates, and I reckon we can give them a run for their money. But yeah, I'm predicting. Actually, you know what? I'll say my predictions later on. But yeah, hopefully it's a good one. Overall, not the result we wanted, but I'm just happy that other results went our way this week, which is the Arsenal 4, Liverpool 0 in the WSL. I don't know why I paused with that. This happened on Saturday, and it was really fun. I was there with Google Pixel, which was super cute. Being back with the Pixel girlies, 2 own goals. Gonna just get that out of the way. Unfortunate. I think no one wants to be getting an own goal, let alone getting 2. When you look at it, if it was like a 4-2 or like a 3-1 or something like that, and it was like, oh, this could have really changed the game, or like a 3-2, but it couldn't have. Like, Arsenal had already won, so I hope she's not too hard on herself. Matthews, who got the own goals, and they were pretty unfortunate ones. But just taking you back to the beginning of the game, from the get-go, Arsenal dominated, which I didn't expect anything less. I mean, when you look at the Emirates, there's always a big crowd, there's always that support behind them, and it's become a bit of a show, you know, like, as in they're proving something. So I think anyone that's coming to us, I mean, what was it? The last game we had was the North London derby. We won 5-0. This game we won 4-0. It just, the Emirates does something, and I love what it does. Like, as a Gooner, keep going. Honestly, keep going. I'm not sure if it's the fans, if it's the actual pitch itself, but there's something about it that Arsenal are like, no, we need to win. We need to thank the fans for coming, if that makes sense. Which they definitely did. I mean, Russo and Marnham, I thought they were going to score pretty much in like the first 10 minutes. Like, there were a lot of chances happening, but it was actually Ford who opened the score sheet in the 28th minute. Then the second goal came because Kim Little was running down into the box, sort of cut it back, and then it's like, it was an own goal. It was Matthews that ended up just tapping it in, but there was nothing you could do about it. Like, you can't just suddenly stop your run, like, mid-run, you know? You've got that much momentum. Like, you've got so much momentum behind you, it's bound to hit off your body and it's going to go in. But I think that's credit to us, especially credit to Kim Little, that she knew that if she got that ball, like, just hit it across the ground into the box, someone's going to get on the end of it. And obviously you'd love it for us to be one of, I think everyone would love for it to have been one of our players to get on the end of it, but it went in the net, so that is all that matters. Caldente then made it 3-0. This was just before half-time, which kind of secured the win for us going into the second half without getting too arrogant or complacent. You knew that sort of was the vibe. Like, I mean, the game was pretty much signed, sealed, delivered at that point. But this goal, oh my god, I feel like this has got to be goal of the game, because I was about to say season. It's not that good, but it was a good one. What happened was Ford basically crossed it in. It got a bit messy, came out of the box, not fully out of the box, but came out slightly. Caldente was on the edge of the box, and she just like controlled it one touch with her right foot, and then left foot just like, I don't even know how, but she just hit it. But she didn't even just, it looked like she just hit it, but she perfectly curled it into the top left corner. And okay, so my camera just decided to turn off, which is super cute. I'm hoping before it cut out, you heard me say about Ford, Russo and Caldente honestly fighting for player of the season, because at this point, I don't know who would get it out of them forever. Like, they've all sort of been leading the way, creating goals, whether that's actually scoring them or assisting. They've been phenomenal this season, so hats off to them. Focusing back, yeah, Mead, she basically did this same sort of movement as Kim Little for the first own goal, and created the second own goal through doing that. She basically, it was just a ball along the floor in the box, and Matthews basically put her foot out to try and get the ball away, but ended up going in the back of the net. But sort of what I said with Kim Little, because you're putting those balls in, you're opening up so that anyone can really tap it in, which is a really good position for us to be in. And yes, overall, I do feel like there could have been more goals, but I don't want to get too greedy. I feel like this has put us in a very good position in the WSL. We are now in second. We're level with points with Man United, so we're on 39 points. This is off the top of my head. I don't know why I don't have it up on my phone. But we're on 39 points, whereas Chelsea are on like 47, 48. Like, I've worked out the only way that Arsenal or United can actually win is if we win all our games and Chelsea lose all their games. That's not happening. I mean, if you look at Chelsea's run, they're playing the bottom half of the table. So Chelsea have already won it. I feel like Chelsea won it back in like, I don't know, I feel like Chelsea won it back at Christmas, so it's not really come as a big shock, this one, but it's nice that we are fighting right up until the end, and our goal difference is really helping us, because at any moment we could drop points, or City could drop points again, or United, and I feel like then we could end up going into fourth. So at least because of our goal difference, we know we'll always be above United. So I'm feeling confident with that. I also just want to quickly touch on, I know this isn't obviously completely Arsenal related, but the relegation battle in the WSL is actually turning into a battle, which obviously the top half of the table, like the top spot, we know Chelsea are going to win, whereas the bottom spot, we sort of said Palace would lose and go back down, which has been the effect that has constantly been happening. I've spoken a lot about this, and I know a lot of people have spoken about this in the women's game, how you come up from the championship and you go straight back down to the WSL, because unless you've got a lot of money pumping into you and a lot of new signings which come with that, and a new manager or a lot of new things, you're going back down, because the standard disparity between the WSL and championship is massive. But I do feel like this right now, Villa are literally 1 point above Palace, so I'm thinking that, I mean, we play Palace, which I'll get into in the predictions. We do play Palace, and I'm hoping obviously we don't drop points to them, but I'm thinking if any teams drop points to Palace, even if Palace just get that 1 point and Villa continue to lose, because their form hasn't been the best recently. I mean, they've just lost 4-0 to United at the weekend. I'm thinking Villa could actually go down, or Palace. It's between the two of them. Right now it's obviously looking like Palace, but you never know. And it's making it a bit more exciting, because I know in the championship there's a huge debate over who's going to come up, because there's about 3-4 teams leading the way with that. But the fact that there's actually a couple of teams that could go down it definitely is making it a bit more exciting, especially when at the top of the table it was sort of written off at Christmas. So I just wanted to get that in there, just in case you don't support Arsenal, but you follow me, or even if you just want to know a bit more about the women's game, it's good to know that the relegation battle is a battle this season, which is probably the first time in forever. So it's pretty good to have that vibe. But anyways, that was the two games, a quick little reflection on them. I say quick, I feel like I've been yapping for a good 10-15 minutes. But let's get on to the predictions, because like I said, the men are still on their international break, but we do have two games. We have the Women's Champions League game, which is tomorrow night, and we then have a WSL game, which is coming on Sunday. We have reached the prediction section of the podcast, which is the last section of the episode, if you're new here. So we've got two games this week. I'm going to keep it quite brief, because I'm sort of running out of time if I want to get this edited out soon. But tomorrow night, Arsenal will be hosting Real Madrid. This is the second leg of the quarterfinal. And yeah. Well, we're going into it. We're going into it losing 2-0. So I don't know why I'm smiling, because it's actually not great. I'm going to the game, and I know this is the same for any game, that it could go good or bad, but I think genuinely this could be the best game I've ever been to. The atmosphere could be amazing. We could win 3-0, or we could win 4-1 or something like that, and literally everyone's going crazy. The vibe is so good. Or it could be the complete opposite, so extreme, and literally everyone's it's a 0-0, or I think 0-0 would be worse than us losing a couple, them scoring a couple goals, because it's oh, no one actually showed up, this was a pointless game to come to, and especially it's an 8 p.m. kickoff. It's going to be late. I won't probably get home until midnight. Honestly, living in South London when you support a club in North London is kind of crazy. Don't ask me why I do that, but I am excited, and I pray it's going to be the first part of what I just said. So I'm hoping, I'm going to say a prediction, which is, I'm going to give two predictions. If I'm thinking with my head, realistically, I think it's going to be a 1-0 game, which means that Arsenal will be knocked out of the Champions League. But if I'm thinking with my heart, I 100% believe we can win 4-1. It's going to go one way or the other. It's going to do that. I'm really hoping we do well. I mean, the pitch hopefully will be a lot better. We've just played on it at the weekend, winning 4-0. So literally a few days ago, we just need to replicate that. It's a new week. Champions League, that last game, like I've said before on the podcast the last couple of episodes, Slegers is very good at focusing on the next game. That game's done, whether we've won or lost it, that game's over. So it's sort of, you can see that with the mindset with the players. as well. So it's a new game. I'm hoping we obviously get through. I think, you know what? If I'm being honest, I feel like this is the most important game that we've played this season, because for me, this is the game where you've got pride on the line, you've got potential silverware on the line. Pride because we're the only English club to have ever won the Champions League, so obviously we want to keep that reputation up by getting as far as we can, hopefully winning it, which is where the silverware obviously comes in. But we also just want to make sure that the likes of like Chelsea and City don't. I mean, obviously we know that one of them is going out on Thursday night, and I'm hoping it's Chelsea. It's looking that way because I think Chelsea have a better chance of winning the Champions League than City do if they progress. So obviously I want City to progress so that Arsenal get through, obviously. So we get through further. I mean, like I've said, this is definitely the most important game that Arsenal have played this season. I mean, we could either create history or be knocked out of the European campaign, and I know which one I want. So I'm hoping my prediction with my heart comes right, not with my head. Moving later on in the week, the end of the week, we'll be playing Palace. It's actually a Mother's Day, otherwise I would be there. But I've got work in the morning and then obviously spending time with me mad today. So that will be cute. But it's a home game, and which is literally like not far from me, obviously, being in South London. I'm going to predict quite a big score, but I feel like I'm quite safe on here. I'm like, oh, just a 2-1 or just a 1-0. I'm going to go with 5-0. I think we can win 5-0. I mean, if you look at our recent scores, like our recent results, minus a few, obviously, like the FA Cup and the Champions League. If you look at the other ones, when we score, when we turn up and we open that score sheet early, we keep it going. Like once the floodgates are open, they're open. So I'm thinking we did that against Spurs. We won 5-0. At the weekend, we just won 4-0 against Liverpool. And I feel like Spurs, Liverpool, Palace. Actually, I was going to say they're on the same level. Palace definitely are lower. So I'm hoping we go in with more confidence, but we can also go with more complacency, which is a word we love to use on this pod, apparently. I do think we just need to be clinical with it. Palace, obviously what I've just mentioned, this for them, they're proper like, oh, we actually might not be going down, depending on obviously what Villa do. I think, who are Villa playing against? Villa are playing against Liverpool this weekend, so you never know. That's quite an even game, but I do feel like Liverpool will probably come out on top, even though they just lost 4-0 to us. They did obviously win the week before to knock us out the FA Cup, so honestly, it could go either way. And yeah, I'm hoping we can have a good week of results. If I'm being completely honest with you, this is actually going to be a wild statement. I'd rather win tomorrow night's game by enough to get us through to the semi-finals of the Champions League and then lose or draw against Palace at the weekend, because for me that's not seen as big of a deal, because in the WSL we are in the top 3 right now. Obviously if we can win both and we can get through with both, then I'll take that, but I'm just thinking priority wise. Not that anyone asked me that or held a gun to my head or whatever and said you need to pick, but I just did. So anyways, that was my vibe of the upcoming week. I'm predicting 2 wins, or one kind of draw, one kind of win, but I feel confident. I feel confident going into tomorrow night's game that we can do well. Whether we do well enough, that is obviously the big question, because we are on the back foot. But it's 0-0, lads. It's 0-0. I feel like that's a phrase that always gets thrown around, probably when you're the ones winning, so you don't get complacent, not the other way around. But anyways, yeah, that was the predictions, and that has been pretty much my reflection of this last week. So in honour of the Arsenal women's clothing line, I do feel like this episode has been quite tailored to the women's side rather than the men's, but obviously that's just how it happens sometimes. Like I said before, if you go back a couple of episodes ago, it was mostly tailored towards the men's side because of the women's international break, so that's just the vibe. But next week it will be back to more of an even split. I mean, we're going to be reflecting on 2 games for the women's side, but then the predictions will come through where we're going to have quite a few games leading to the rest of the season now. And it's actually crazy, we're literally nearly in April. When I film the podcast next week, it will probably be April or like the last day of March, and then we'll literally have like a month. Like we've actually got like 5-6 weeks left of both leagues, so not long now. And I'm hoping the other competitions also work out in our favour. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, comment down below as well. And if you're listening on Spotify, hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too much waffle. And you follow, give me a rating. my voice is about to go. I feel like this is really random. I should probably end this podcast now, but I went to Rizzle Kicks at the weekend, and honestly, one of the best nights of my life. So fun. I went with one of my best friends, Joe, and we were just dancing the whole night. It was so fun. But I do feel like my voice is like being killed off because of it. So I'm going to stop talking now. But I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll be back next Monday.